She slap him hard as she can. In the small town of Nkaru, where red earth met golden sunsets, there stood a towering baobab tree at the heart of the village. It had been there for centuries, older than anyone could remember. The elders said it had seen the rise and fall of kings, heard the laughter of children who had grown into ancestors, and whispered the wisdom of the past to those who truly listened. But in recent years, something strange happened. One by one, villagers began noticing that whenever they sat under the tree, their phones, which often struggled to get a signal, suddenly worked perfectly. At first, people dismissed it as a coincidence. But then, a group of schoolchildren sitting beneath the tree discovered they could download videos and research their assignments faster than anywhere else in the village. "Look, it's working!" one boy shouted as his phone screen glowed with a clear signal. "Mine too!" said a girl, eyes wide in disbelief. Word spread quickly, and soon the baobab was no longer just a gathering place for stories and shade. It became the town's unofficial internet cafe. People came from all over to make video calls, send emails, and even stream their favorite Nollywood films. Elder Kofi, the village's oldest storyteller, watched in amusement as young people who once ignored the tree now huddled beneath it at all hours. "Humph," he grumbled one day. "Perhaps the spirits of our ancestors have decided to learn about the modern world." But not everyone was happy. Mr. Banda, a wealthy businessman from the city, had been eyeing the land for years. He wanted to build a shopping mall with flashy billboards, modern stores, and a parking lot where the old tree stood. He saw no value in the past, only in profit. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows over the village, Mr. Banda arrived with a team of surveyors. "This tree is taking up space," he declared. "We can put something better here, something useful." The villagers protested. "This tree is part of our home. It has been here longer than any of us," Mama Ya, a local trader, argued. "Tradition is nice," Mr. Banda said, adjusting his expensive watch, "but progress is better." Amina, a 14-year-old girl with bright eyes and an even brighter mind, listened in silence. Unlike the others, she wasn't just worried, she was curious. She had always loved mysteries, and something about the Wi-Fi tree didn't make sense. How could an ancient tree boost the internet? Was it magic, or was there another explanation? That night, unable to sleep, Amina snuck out of her house and walked to the tree. The village was quiet, except for the sound of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. She placed her hands on the rough bark and whispered, "What are you hiding?" A sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves above her. A chill ran down her spine. Then something strange happened. Her phone, which had been at 2% battery, suddenly jumped to 30%. The screen flickered, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw something. Words flashing on the screen too fast to read. Amina took a deep breath. This was no ordinary tree. She needed to find out the truth. Amina's heart pounded as she stared at her phone. The sudden battery boost, the strange flickering, this wasn't normal. She looked around, making sure no one was watching, then took a deep breath and walked around the massive trunk of the baobab. The air felt different here, charged with something she couldn't explain. The next morning, she told her best friend Kofi about what happened. "You think the tree is alive?" Kofi asked, raising an eyebrow. "I don't know," Amina admitted. "But something is happening here, and I need to find out what before Mr. Banda destroys it." That afternoon, Amina and Kofi returned to the tree, this time with a shovel. They started digging near the roots, careful not to harm them. The soil was dry and stubborn, but after a few minutes, Kofi's shovel hit something hard. Clank! They exchanged nervous glances before clearing away more dirt. Beneath the roots of the baobab, they uncovered a thick black cable, one unlike anything they had seen before. It ran deep underground, disappearing into the distance. This is a fiber optic cable, Kofi exclaimed. Fiber what? Amina asked. Kofi, whose uncle worked with technology in the city, explained, It's what carries the internet. The tree's roots must have wrapped around it over time, and somehow they help boost the signal. Amina's mind raced. So that was the secret of the Wi-Fi tree. The tree wasn't magical. It was unknowingly acting as a natural antenna, helping the village connect to the world. But before they could celebrate, a loud voice boomed behind them. "What do you think you're doing?" Mr. Banda stood there with his men, holding legal documents in his hand. "This land is mine now, and that tree is coming down tomorrow." The villagers gathered, angered and afraid. They had no power against the businessman's money and influence. The tree, their history, their connection, was about to be destroyed. That night, Amina couldn't sleep, but she had an idea. The next morning, before the bulldozers arrived, she and Kofi ran to the mayor's office, carrying a detailed report about the cable beneath the baobab. They explained how the tree had unknowingly preserved the abandoned internet project and how destroying it could disrupt the network in ways no one had foreseen. The mayor, a stern but reasonable man, listened carefully. He called in engineers to confirm the claim. When they arrived at the tree, they dug further and found something shocking. The cable was still active, and it was carrying internet to surrounding villages. Destroying the tree wouldn't just erase history, it would cut off entire communities from the digital world. With this new evidence, the government stepped in and declared the Wi-Fi tree a national heritage site. Instead of a shopping mall, a technology hub was built around the tree, allowing villagers to learn about the internet, coding, and business, all while preserving their beloved baobab. As for Mr. Banda, he was forced to leave, his plans crumbling like dust in the wind. And so, under the mighty baobab, young and old gathered every evening, not just to browse the internet, but to tell stories. Because in the end, the future and the past weren't enemies, they were branches of the same tree, growing together.